Yo, it's me, Tony. Come inside of me. Free Ball Friday. I'm here for you. Not my best self. Okay, first of all, I am having the most intense stress dreams. They are out of fucking control. But here's the thing. Okay, so I've been in the process of making merch. Hello. Yes, it's me, Tony, making merch for you to buy. And you know me and my issues with capitalism, so it is complicated for me to make merch. However, I do think this merch will bring value to you and society. So I have been working within the program of Adobe Photoshop for fucking weeks, figuring out the colors and working with the designer, because of course I have to have a human help me with the design because I only contribute to human made art. And listen to this, her Instagram handle that's helping me with this is human made art, like at human made art. So like this is the bitch for me. So she helped me with the design, but I've been having to do all the colors. I've been having to like figure out the placing of the thing for the merch and yabba 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 yada 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 do. And I have been in this nightmare of Adobe Photoshop. So I work with Adobe Premiere for editing videos, and I work with Adobe Photoshop because I pay for this stupid fucking Adobe Suite, which is talk about capitalism, right? Like you can't just buy software anymore and be like, I own this software. No, what you have to do is you buy access to it. So you pay a monthly access fee, which is in perpetuity. It is indefinite. You just keep fucking paying this gosh darn it fee. I pay it every fucking month. So I have to use the program. I must use the program. But here's the kick, okay? I have nightmares about Adobe Premiere and Adobe Photoshop all the time. If I spend like a couple hours a day editing a video, especially when I was doing music videos a lot and editing music videos, which I've truly spent 100 hours on editing a music video, if I edited a short film, I would have nightmares about being in Adobe Premiere all night. So now that I'm in Adobe Photoshop, I'm also having nightmares, but also visions like, oh my God, I need a leopard print version. I need a zebra print version. I need a rainbow version. So like there are visions within the nightmares, but I have never dreamt about any other computer program, never dreamt about email, never dreamt about Microsoft Word. I've never even dreamt about being on my phone. So there's something about Adobe and the Adobe Suite that is different, because why am I fucking dreaming about it? And having like obsessive, nightmarish stress dreams about being in the Adobe Suite. No other computer program have I ever dreamt about. So explain to me that world. Also, another stress dream I was having last night was having to perform my show Men Come Inside of Me, and I didn't know I was performing, and I didn't have any of my fucking props. I did not have my fake dick. Nothing was ready. Nothing was set. And it was like totally fucking upsetting, you know? And then for some reason I was gonna have my fake dick like in this perpetual boner, but like it actually has to be flaccid for a good part of the show. So that was also upsetting. I don't know when you should come see Men Come Inside of Me. I think I'm bringing it to Seattle. That is truly a good show. You must come see it. So keep going to, I'll keep talking about it. Seattle is, I think, the weekend on the 21st of November. So Men Come Inside Me is coming to Seattle. Hello. All right. You know what I want to talk about today? I want to talk about men. I want to talk about men. I want to talk about guys. I want to talk about dudes. I want to talk about the dudes that make me wet. The dudes that make me just incredibly excited to be alive. And there are men out there where I'm like, this is a fucking dope ass dude. Of course, I am inundated with dudes who I'm like, what the fuck, man? Seriously? But there are some dope ass dudes, and I want to talk about the dope ass dudes because this is what I think about grape culture. I'm obviously going on and on and on about it for a bunch of reasons. Reason number one, I care. Reason number two, I wrote a show about it and I want you to see my show. Reason number three, it is everywhere. Reason number four, people are talking about it in a way that they've never talked about it before publicly. in the existence of humanity that I have been witnessing. So I think we're at a precipice. I think we're at a really interesting point in culture where this is part of the zeitgeist. It's part of the cultural conversation. Can I get props? The fact that I decided to write a show called Grape Culture over a year and a half ago, and now everyone calls it Grape Culture. I just feel very proud of me because that came to me in a vision after I met Serafina Supernova. We hung out for a weekend and I fell in love hard with her as a friend and as a potential collaborator. And she told me her grape stories. And I was inspired, LOL. what an amazing grape story. No, but what I was inspired by was the fact that she documented her processing her grapes in real time. And I knew that that was very important work. Because this was before Instagram stories, before TikTok, before any of these things. And so the fact that she had footage of herself processing her grapes, she also had footage of herself quitting her job from her boss that sexually assaulted her, and she filmed herself. She was holding the camera kind of down below, and she filmed and recorded her quitting her job as this young woman. It is dope, and it's in the show. So when Sarah told me she had that footage, me as a filmmaker and me as a performer was like, oh my God, we should write a comedy about grape and call it Grape Culture. I thought of that 2 years ago. It was truly it was exactly 2 years ago to the day. It is the anniversary of Grape Culture. 2 years ago, I thought of that word, Grape Culture. I'm not saying I made it up, but I think I did. But I'm not saying I did, but I could have. You know what I mean? People said grape, but no one was saying Grape Culture. And now everyone is saying it. And I really think I'm a part of that. Can I get credit where credit's due? Thank you. I also am obsessed with credit. Probably not my best feature, but it's true about me. I can't be fucking perfect. All right, this is why I want to talk about men. The men who make me wet. I think this is how I'm going to call the podcast, The Men Who Make Me Wet, or something like that, because I think that's titillating and provocative. But the amount of men who are talking about grape culture right now is, I mean, I just came. That's how I come. It is exciting. And let me tell you why it is exciting. Because grape culture benefits men. Not exclusively, because of course men get graped. We all know the amount of boys that are getting graped is a lot. We can't even fathom how many because they're not talking about it. So we have to hold so much space for our boys who've been graped, our men who've been graped, who are so silent, who are so alone in their experience. And of course, they're not always graped by men, but 99% of grapists are men. So there's only, I think, 1% of female grapers. That's not to say they don't exist. They definitely exist. But statistically, there might be more, again, if the men aren't reporting the female grapers. So let's say 5%. Let's even give it 10%. Okay, I'm going to say 10% of grapers are women. That is a statistic I made up, considering I don't think men are reporting women. It could be even larger, actually. I don't know. So, long story long, we have grape culture that benefits men on the surface, okay? Benefits men on the surface. We all know that in the deep underbelly of our souls and of our spirits, graping women, graping boys, graping children ain't good for your soul. It's not good for your spirit. I don't know how to tell you this. It's gonna be a problem when you're on your deathbed. You're not gonna be like, I just snuggle in with all the memories of the grapes I did. No, I don't think that's how it works. I think you're going to be haunted and horrified by your actions of harming others. I do believe that that happens on some level, and we have to all reckon with the ways that we impact others negatively. So, but what I say when on the superficial level, grape culture benefits men, the men that are fighting against grape culture by talking about it are actively curious about an experience of others that is so hot. It is so hot to be like, I wonder what it could be like for someone to have an experience that I don't have. You know, like that in and of itself, that level of curiosity, that level of interest, that level of compassion, that level of understanding. And I don't think it's just like, well, I have a mother and I hope she's not raped, or I have a sister and I hope she's not raped, or now that I've had a daughter, I care about rape. That's still dehumanizing. I think what I'm also referencing is the men who just understand that women are humans and not just like functions of men, and that like, oh, humans are being violated and I have a problem with that systemic violation. Because I think the guys that are really talking about grape culture understand that this isn't just like isolated. They're understanding, or they're beginning to understand, or they're beginning to uncover and talk about the deeper relationship that society has to grape. And where I think this is really brave, and let me tell you why I think it's really brave and really interesting, is that I think that if you're going to go down a path of talking about grape culture, and you're going to talk about Epstein, and you're going to talk about women, you're going to talk about children, you're going to talk about boys, and you're going to talk about all this, then at a certain point you're going to have to ask yourself, have I done anything that is grapey? You're just going to have to ask yourself. And with that, the answer is probably yes. Because again, the culture of grape that existed was very permissive. Okay, let's talk about remember that, I don't know if you know the movie, there was a movie called Revenge of the Nerds. Okay, this was a movie for teenagers in the 80s, and it was like the nerds versus jocks, whatever. And basically there's the popular girls, always, of course, there's the peeping tom in all of these teen movies in the 80s, including John Hughes movies. All right, there, who is I love John Hughes, but lots of his movies, did not age well, racist and misogynist. However, again, this was placed in the context of a time where this wasn't even fucking questioned, right? So you have the peeping tom of the girls in the shower constantly happening. But in Revenge of the Nerds, there is a blatant rape scene where one of the nerds wears I think it's like a Darth Vader mask, if I'm remembering correctly, and is pretending to be one of the jocks, pretending to be the boyfriend of one of the popular girls, and has sex with her, rapes her, because she doesn't know it's fucking him. Also, I don't know if you remember in 16 Candles, when Jake, the hot guy, lets his girlfriend leave with the nerd, I almost said Anthony Kiedis, Anthony Michael Scott, or something, I can't remember his name. You know that guy, the nerd, in Anthony something. And they both get really fucked up, and they also have sex. So they kind of like rape each other, because I think he was a virgin and she was really fucked up. They were both fucked up. Mutual rape, but definitely she was raped. Maybe in a way he was too. I mean, that's a conversation. This was so normalized, no one was like, oh, these are rape scenes. We were like, ha ha, moving on. So I think that any man that was alive in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s and the 2020s might have engaged in some rapey, grapey behavior. And not because he was coming at it with the intention of like, oh, I'm going to grape this girl, fuck her. It was really, again, like these cultural norms of things that were accepted, you know. And I even like the pressuring girls into doing things, like the amount of dudes that pressured me into doing something I didn't want to do was Grape City, especially as a teen, you know. Granted, and then like the head pushing down to give head, Grape City. I don't think I've ever had the head push, although it feels familiar. It feels like it could have happened. I can't remember. It feels like someone may have pushed ahead. Rude, fucking rude. If it did happen, I blocked it out. It's something about it feels familiar, but I can't remember who did it. Again, Grape City. Like the amount of like weird hookup situations I've been in where I'm like, I don't fucking want to do that. I mean, there's a lot of times where I did make things awkward and was like, I'm not fucking doing that. But then a lot of times I was like, okay. Because again, this is what grape culture is. It's around this like confusion around consent, because we're not asking each other, we're not checking in. There is this like desire for the man to blow his load. So he's not as curious about the female experience or whoever he's hooking up with. He's more curious about his dick explosion. So, okay, this is what I want to talk about when it comes to privilege and like men having the privilege of graping, but how that's not actually a privilege. And I'm going to give you an example, and you're going to be like, why are you giving this example? But I think it's a good one. So when I was 18, I went to the dentist, and I went to my grandmother's dentist in New York City. And my grandmother could afford a dentist, right? So she was like, oh yeah, you'll just like go to, I was living in New York City too. She's like, you'll just go to my dentist. And basically I was just going to be on her bill, her dentist bill. And they were like, oh yeah, you need your wisdom teeth out. I was young. I was like 19. I didn't have any teeth. They weren't even like coming in. So they're like, yeah, you need like one of your wisdom teeth out. And I was like, okay, as you do when you're a kid and like some authority figure is telling you to do something. So I go in to get the wisdom tooth out, and then they give me the drugs, like the laughing gas or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, we're actually just gonna take them all out because like, why not? And I'm like fucked up. And then they like just like sign this paper and we're gonna take out all your teeth. And I was like, okay. And I guess I signed the paper, and then I woke up with fucking 4 teeth missing, major goddamn surgery. And I didn't even fucking know what happened. And I was like, okay. And I was like, that's fucking weird. So, retrospectively, your wisdom teeth are very connected to your organs, and just ripping teeth out of your mouth when they're not causing a problem is barbaric. It is fucked up. And that is, again, one of these like cultural norms. And if any of you are a dentist, I ask you to explore the process of ripping teeth out of mouths, and like that should be a very last case scenario. And there's also like, I don't know if you've gone on the TikTok rabbit hole of like how to heal cavities naturally, but you can heal cavities naturally. You don't have to do all of these fillings and root canals. Like there's lots of ways to deal with teeth beyond what the dentist industry is insisting upon. Does that mean that every dentist is a Little Shop of Horrors fucking, that guy? Little Shop of Horrors masochist, that's the word, just like singing along and with this like plant that's going to eat him? Not necessarily. I'm sure there's some good dentists out here, and if any of you listen to this podcast and you're a dentist, I'm sure you're one of them. But the industry of dentistry is about extraction, and I think we need to rethink the level of extraction when it comes to our mouths. Okay, I'm just like throwing that out there. Do your own research. I have definitely gone down these rabbit holes because I've had a lot of dental trauma, and I can tell you another one. But anyway, long story long, these teeth were ripped out of my mouth. I was drugged. How could a drugged 18, 19-year-old girl give consent about teeth being ripped out of her mouth, never to return? Okay, fast forward, I'm like in my 30s, and I'm like having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we're talking about wisdom teeth, and I tell her this story, and she was like, you better check your privilege, because it is a privilege to get your wisdom teeth out. And she was super rude about this story, and then I was like so ashamed, and I was like, oh, you're right, it was such a privilege that like I could afford to have these wisdom teeth taken out. Like I felt so ashamed. Retrospectively, fuck her, because what was happening is that because I had the finances to exploit, they just shoved fucking metal in my mouth and ripped teeth out because they were just going to charge my grandmother. It wasn't about my health. It wasn't about a privilege. It was actually about financial extraction and exploitation that was being manifested by my wisdom teeth, because they could discharge this old bitch and get her money, and they didn't give a fuck about my mouth. But this girl telling me, no, it's a privilege. It's a privilege that happened to you, and you better check your privilege. Look, I check my privilege all the motherfucking time. That is not an instance where my privilege needed to be checked. That is actually an instance where quote unquote privilege, right? Financial access is exploitation, because people want the fucking money. So they're not doing it in order for your body to be in the best possible position. And I think that is a really interesting example of grape culture and privilege that is complex and confusing, because being able to afford something is also an opportunity to get exploited, right? And this is why I bring this up with the men and the grape culture. So men have the opportunity to grape anytime they want, right? Kind of, not necessarily, but the opportunity to grape is there. So the men who are questioning the opportunity of grape and who are actually recognizing that this isn't an opportunity, but this is actually a trap. This is a trapping of society that will infiltrate my soul and my psyche and will damage and destroy me for years and decades to come. That is a man who's actually checking his privilege. That is a man who's actually curious about, like, yes, my quote unquote privilege would be to just go around the world doing Grape City because I can, because I have the physical strength, because I have the cultural context of which to support that, right? Because as we know, I've gone on and on about this, like, people do not get convicted for grape. I mean, it is truly 3%, okay? That's a very low percentage. So the likelihood that you're gonna get away with it is high, high, high. So the men that understand that that's not a privilege, just like it's not a privilege to be like just a medical experiment because you have insurance or because you have the finances. Do you get what I'm saying? So there is, of course, medical experimentation that takes place on people that cannot afford it, which is like, we know this. That is very fucking clear. They're just like ripping uteruses out of women. They've sterilized women of certain economic brackets and of certain races. I mean, like, I could go on and on and on about the exploitation of bodies of people who cannot afford it, who are experimented on. I mean, also, P.S., that's what they're saying that Bill Gates was doing at Epstein's Island. He wasn't so much about the Grape City. He was about he was experimenting on women. It was like a whole CRISPR fucking nightmare of a gene modification. That's what the people on TikTok are saying, and I think it's worth looking into. And this is what the women are saying. So this is the other thing that's interesting about the men who are investigating grape culture, is that they're also believing women's stories, right? Because how do you prove grape? It's very difficult. Even, like, people will even explain away a video. I mean, like, people will do the mental gymnastics to be like, oh yeah, she's unconscious, but like, look at what she's wearing. Or the video won't even convince a judge of grape, even if it's like the evidence is in front of you and you can see it. So the fact that there is like a legion of men who are like, I am believing a woman's perspective. I am identifying with her perspective of what happened to her and what she is saying her experience was. And I'm not actually asking for anything more than that. That's a dope ass motherfucking dude. Because he is identifying more with the woman than he's identifying with the graper. Which, like, on paper, he should identify more with the graper and just be like, oh yeah, but like I can grape, so like why not grape, He's like doing the work in his mind to, again, not differentiate from woman and just be like, this is a human speaking of violation. I'm going to identify with that concept of violation. And therefore, I am going to have empathy, compassion, concern, etc., etc. It is a humanizing process rather than the pulling apart of identity and being like, well, that's not my gender. So, like, what the hell does that bitch want? Or whatever the fuck. Because this is, and again, like, why it's interesting. It's like the same interest I have in whiteys who are examining systemic racism, and whiteys who are examining their own, what is it when you have the internal prejudice, unconscious bias, right? We all have unconscious bias, but as a whitey to have unconscious bias, it is much more dangerous. Hello, in a white supremacist nation, it's much more dangerous to have an unconscious bias when you are white. So the whiteys who are like, yes, unconscious bias, how do I have that? How does that manifest in my life? What am I doing? To the men who are examining misogyny, that is interesting to me. To the people of privilege, who are like born into privilege or like middle class, upper class, whatever, and who are like, I am concerned with the economic imbalance of this world, and that is disturbing to me, and I actually am interested in finding out how to work against my own quote unquote privilege or work against my own advantage in order to have a more equitable society, because these are the people that understand that it's actually not a fucking privilege to be some rich white fuck in a world where people of color are oppressed and people that do not have money are fucking oppressed, because that oppression actually impacts the entire quantum entanglement of humanity, and it's not benefiting you. It's actually making you a lonely, isolated monster. It's not fucking cool, you know? And that is why when you work against your quote unquote privilege, you're actually working for the betterment of yourself and your soul and your psyche. It's actually selfish, but it takes a certain kind of like perspective to understand that, like, no, this is actually what's best for humanity is what's best for me, because I am a part of humanity. And all these like these dingleberries that are just like, well, I'm just going to isolate myself in the VIP section of life are fucking lonely, and they're isolated, and then they're stuck with a bunch of other lonely, isolated people, and that's why they're all doing weird ceremonies and eating each other's cum on pizza and graping children. I mean, obviously people of all economic brackets grape children, but you get what I'm saying. And they're not doing it in a ritualized manner and like drinking adrenochrome to stay alive forever. I mean, so obviously, if the privilege of grape and if the privilege of white supremacy and if the privilege of wealth was actually good, then these people wouldn't be doing such depraved acts all the time, right? Like, how many Republican centimeters how many Republican senators have to get into kiddie porn for us to be like, maybe being a Republican centimeter? Why do I keep saying that? Republican senator isn't morally fulfilling you, because why do you keep going to kiddie porn? You're not thriving, my dude. So this is the other thing I want to say about these men that I'm obsessed with. These men that are like driving the conversation of grape culture right now. Because, all right, us ladies, we've been talking about it, okay? I mean, like, we've been yapping about it for a long time, and I respect us. I bless us. I love us. And like those that share their stories, those that cannot share their stories in any way that you're like participating in the conversation, or like cannot participate in the conversation because it's too painful, my endless love extends to you like beyond what is like humanly possible, okay? But why I say the men are driving this story or driving this narrative or driving this conversation at this current moment, at this current paradigm, is because they're challenging their own interests within this grapey culture. And that in and of itself is challenging the men that are doing the graping in a way that's different than us being like, hey y'all, hey buddies, you keep graping us. Men holding men accountable is a fucking vibe. You know, and that's because the grapey men aren't identifying with women, but they are identifying with other men. And sure, they might dehumanize these other men and call them pussies or call them whipped or call them whatever. But a lot of these men are buff, and a lot of these men are unhinged and like actually I feel like can like kick ass, you know? Like there's a couple I follow on the gram where I'm like, this guy is fucking unhinged, and I like it, you know, because he looks dangerous actually, but he's like going off about like Epstein's list like constantly, and like how Trump is a graper, and like obsessed, because he's not like, I'm really peaceful, you know, he's not like the kind of guy one would expect. It's not, this is what's jazzing me up. It's not just like guys with flowing robes and beards and mala beads, and they're not, you know, it's not just like men being like, oh yes, like Kundalini, you know, it's like dudes with trucker hats and like dudes with trucks and dudes that like are just a different archetype, you know, like am I doing my own prejudice of men right now? 100%, you know, but you know, there's like the dudes that are considered to be like, oh, and then there's the dudes that are considered to be like, oh, I'm just a dude, you know, like I like sports, and like dudes that are like, I can't fucking get down with this sports team that's full of grapists. Like that's an interesting guy to me. It's an interesting guy that is questioning everything he likes, because he's like, why are all these hockey players graping women? Maybe I need to reevaluate my relationship to hockey. If you haven't heard of the hockey Grape City, like Get on board, because there is some gang grape happening in the hockey world. You know what? I got to tell you something. Hockey has always been kind of a grapey sport. And it's interesting that it's coming out now because it's a very fucking white sport. I think hockey, honestly, is the grapiest of all sports, and lacrosse, and it's the whitest. Just saying, just saying. Not that there aren't football players who grape, but usually it's the quarterback, who's usually a white-o. So, of course, all races grape. Yes, 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 yes. But I think there's like an entitlement of the white man where the grapes have a texture to it, because they're like, I'm entitled to everyone's body. I'm entitled to what I want. The entitlement of grape culture within sports is real. What else did I want to say about this? Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to say about the grapey men. So obviously I've been making videos about this. Men are mad. Men are mad at me. Lots of comments, lots of comments. One guy was like, basically, what did I say? I made a video where I was like, how it feels to be on a government watch list and not Epstein's list, because I'm 100% on a government watch list. We all know this. And he was like, he said something kind of that was like, you wouldn't even be on Epstein's list, but now you can be on Trump's list or something. And I felt like the implication was that I was either too old to be on Epstein's list or not hot enough, which I think I'm definitely, not to brag, but I think I have the body type. But I can now be on Trump's list, which means like, oh, I could be like one of Trump's next rape victims, I guess. Grape victims, is that what he was saying? Wasn't exactly clear. This is the thing that I'm like so bored with. These fucking dudes and their comments are so goddamn boring. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, you think you're the first person who's ever been like, well, why don't you get graped? I'll come and grape you. Oh, how original. What an original thought. What an original comment. Did you just come up with that? I'm so bored by their programming and their comments, and they're just like ideas that are just like, oh, you get graped. Oh, duh. It's like, my dude, do you have an original thought? Do you have anything interesting to say that is like complex? Because say that. Like, there was this one guy, he used to message me all the time. We did not agree on anything. I mean, he was always trying to talk me out of genocide and out of like systemic racism and out of all these things that like I fundamentally believe, and I don't think he was gonna ever talk me out of. But I appreciated the fact that like, I mean, I still think he was in like his own propaganda loop, but there was something about the way he was communicating that at least felt that he was using his fucking brain in a way that was like attempting to have unique thoughts. But the level of just like repetition, it's like they do feel, it's like really giving NPC. I'm like, oh my God, you think you're the first guy who's ever been like, you get graped? I'm like, get a fucking personality, my dude. Get a personality. Say something new. Say something interesting. So I don't know, if you're a woman out there and you're like getting harassed by men, and the reason why it doesn't bother, I mean, I guess it bothers me to the sense that it's so fucking boring, you know? I'm just like, what the fuck, man? And it's boring because it's I don't want to say it's dumb, because I have a hard time calling people dumb, because I think that's not the vibration I want to give out into the world. But what I think it is, it's like this willful ignorance where it's so lazy. That's what it is. It's lazy. It's lazy logic. It's lazy thoughts. It's lazy insults. You know, like, it would be interesting if someone insulted me in a way where I was like, oh, hello, I didn't think about that. That's kind of unique. Or I don't mind a unique insult, because at least it like wakes me up for a second. Anything that shocks you out of your own patterning, it's like, okay, you know, sure. That I could get into, but the laziness of like grape threats, I'm just like, also, I really think if any of these guys were alone with me for 4 seconds, they would be so terrified of my energy. And I don't think they know how scary I would be to be around in person. They often do like mention my eyes and how like my eyes are crazed. And again, I think my eyes are the prettiest thing about me. And I also think they're correct. Like my eyes are crazed. And I think that like I have a lot more energy than a lot of these guys. And I think I would fucking annihilate them emotionally. So I think they are like, it would, I do think it would be interesting to like get in a room with some of these people and really hash some of this shit out, you know? I don't know how to do that because every time I try, they always back out. If you're one of these guys that like wants to leave I'll grape you comments and you want to like get in a room with me and really fucking hash it out, I'm interested. I'm interested to see how that goes. I'm interested to see to what impact we frighten each other. Like it's really hard for a human being to frighten me at this point in my life. I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't know. Maybe it's just where I'm at right now. Like the level of like primal rage I feel. This is the other thing that I think is powerful with women is we're getting angry. Did you ever see that Key and Peele when he's like pretending to be a girl and he's like, I'm not angry. That's me. I am angry, and there is such like a there's such like a charge in that. I also think everyone's like periods are syncing up. So I just think that like if you really let your like primal rage up that society, and not just that how women are treated, but genocide, but capitalism, but racism, but transphobia and homophobia, like all of that, if you let it like course through your veins and you just like have the right cup of coffee, oh, guess what, y'all? I am doing a coffee thing. It's happening. The seeds have been planted. I'm still so excited about it. I can't wait to release my coffee collaboration to you. Yeah, I think that people should fear me. That's what I think. Because I am mad, but also compassion, love. But like, holy cannoli, do I have some sacred rage. All right, anyway, so back to these men, because I do want to honor these men. I want to collectively honor them. This is the other thing, y'all. We need to praise good behavior, okay? I think there is a whole kind of movement of like women being fed the fuck up with men. I understand it. There's like the 4B movement where people are like, I'm never fucking with a dude again. There is a lot of conversations around emotional labor, invisible labor, man keeping is like a very big phrase right now of like the women having to like do all this work with the men, and this is real. However, there are men, and I know them personally. They're in my life. They're in my DMs. They are in my ecosphere. I'm watching them on the internet. There are men who are fucking trying, who are doing the work, and we need to celebrate and praise these men. I need to praise you if I could. We need to get down with these dudes because I do think that positive reinforcement is a very motivating factor, and we can't just tell these men what not to do. Okay, because like that's like a child rearing thing, and I'm not saying men are children, but I am saying that when you are in the process of evolution, so when we're like raising children, if you always are like, don't do that, hey Timmy, don't do that, don't eat that, don't do that, instead you're like, hey Timmy, we eat food in this family, not shit. Or hey Timmy, we don't touch our dick at the table, we touch our elbows, whatever the fuck. You tell Timmy what he's supposed to be doing rather always focusing on what he's not supposed to be doing, right? And that is where Timmy gets the coding and the imprint to be like, oh, I don't touch my dick at the table. I instead gesticulate with my hands and tell a good story. Whatever the fuck you're asking Timmy to do at the table. So you create a culture where you're pushing your child towards what you want from them. You're not just focusing on what you don't want for them, because you cannot do a don't. I cannot don't touch my dick at the table, but I can use my fork and knife to eat. You know what I mean? You give the command of what to do, not command. I mean, that's a fucked up, like, what is it, royal word. I command you, Timmy, to use your fork and knife instead of touching your dick. But you know what I mean? It's like you give the suggestion of what to do, and then people have the idea of what to do. We need to do this culturally with men who we are asking to change. We can't just be like, don't do that. We have to be like, more of this, and celebrate it and get excited about it and get hot about it and like make it exciting, because I do think that men want to please, and that's not to like be sexist. I think men like to be of service. I actually do think that. Like, I think a lot of women are like, he just not listening to me. He just wants to solve the problem. He's not listening to me. That's how his brain fucking works. Like, men like solving problems. Like, that's why we have electricity, you know? Maybe some bitch discovered electricity and I don't know that because of the patriarchy. I actually truly have no idea. Probably. But I do know that, like, men like to solve problems. And when we ask them to just sit around and listen, they're kind of like, it's not where I thrive. They're not the best listeners, but they're great at problem solving. I mean, if you like tell them, hey, solve this problem, a lot of them are good at it. So I think that when you give them the problem to solve, they can get jiggy with it. Like, they can get down with it. I can't quote Will Smith because Will Smith is definitely a part of the Illuminati. That just came out of my mouth. Remember that song, Getting Jiggy with It? Nah. That's a horrible song. His music was horrible, although The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a great show. But I think he did have to sell his soul to be a part of that, which makes no sense because it was a great show. But he's definitely Illuminati, and we all know that he's a Scientologist or Christian Scientologist. Christian scientist? Whatever. One of those. Scientology. That's the Hollywood one. So I think that the more we celebrate the dudes that are acting in a way that are like fighting against grape culture, that's a vibe. And I think that like what we need to do is like this is what I never understood about men who like don't support abortion, because like I feel like if you wanted to like get fucked, go to an abortion rally because like those girls are fucking, like they're like having sex. So I just think that like the feminist man is also like getting puss. Like, it's also for your dick, my dude. Like, it's hot. It's like, and then you're also hanging out with chicks who have opinions and thoughts and aren't just like, well, I'll do whatever you want to do. Which I get that some guys like that, but like, you know what? If guys were just totally fulfilled with like having a subservient woman, we wouldn't have all these Republican centipedes doing kiddie porn. Okay, so they're obviously not totally fulfilled with subservient women. I think people like to be challenged. I think people like to grow, and I think people like to talk. Like, how, like, I think that like when you're dealing with women who talk and have opinions and thoughts, you grow as a human, and then like you're a better, more interesting dude, and then you have better, more interesting sex, and then you're like have a more intimate love life, and then you're like probably not engaging in kiddie porn. I don't know. We'd have to do a little bit of a survey. But like, I don't think the men I'm with do not fuck with porn because I am too challenging. There's too much mental stimulation with me to like even handle a porno site. Because then it's like, I can't look at this porno site. This woman is in my head, and she's fucked with my head to the point where I'm not going to be interested in a porno site, but I'm going to be very excited about a pair of tits. That's what we need to get back to. Like, tits are exciting enough. We don't need all the porno, but I do want to respect all my girlies in the sex worker field, and I want you to make money, but I also don't want a porno culture where people are going to kiddie porn and people are like waiting for chicks to turn 18 just for them to get on their OnlyFans. I mean, I'm glad that girl, whatever her name was, made $1 million, but it's complicated. I think women should make $1 million from her mind. She should have written a poem, and all the men should have been like, I can't wait till she's 18 and she writes this erotic poem, and I read her erotic poem. Like, that's a vibe. That's a fucking vibe. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe she wanted to be on OnlyFans, but she probably could write a sick-ass erotic poem of an 18-year-old girl. Also, all right, I think I went off. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to celebrate men. This is a podcast to celebrate men, celebrate the men in your life who are trying, who are doing the work, who are challenging, who are caring. Celebrate them, promote them, get them laid, get them cuddles, get them hugs. Challenge their minds, help them evolve, let them influence you, you influence men. But like, so let's really get down with these dudes. I'm happy they're here. I don't want to just focus on the men who suck and like, oh, grape you in the comments. Like, yeah, it's like, let's not put our attention on all these dudes who are boring. Let's like, okay, be fucking boring. Peace. I'm out. I'm going to pay attention to this guy who's making 7,000 videos about grape culture and gives a shit. Like, I'm going to pay attention to that dude. That dude's interesting. I'm going to pay attention to the dudes who are like curious. So let's do that. Okay, I love you. I hope you have a great day. Bye.